the channel, we unbox the greatest of all time with the UFC legend Series 6, El Guapo, Bas Rutten.
The spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever!
Welcome everyone, Kyle here, and welcome back to the channel for quite possibly the most biased review of all time. I'm calling it right away. This is the most biased review of all time, as today we're talking Jakks, we're talking UFC legend Series 6, Bas Rutten, El Guapo himself, the greatest MMA, greatest fighter of all time, and one of the greatest personalities in the history of the universe of all time. Yeah, I said it, as I am a devotee to the world of Bas Rutten. I have been for, since the mid-90s, late 90s, whatever it was, I have been a Bas Rutten fan. So Bas Rutten is something special to me, but if you're looking for UFC figures, especially the Jakks ones, probably better go to eBay. But if you're looking for some Jazzwares ones, Ringside Collectibles may have a few left for you. Unfortunately, that line didn't take off like we had all hoped it would. So they have some remnants over there. Use discount code Kyle, save yourself 10%. But today we're talking Legends Series 6 Bas Rutten from the old school Jakks line. And this is a long game unboxing here for this Bas Rutten. I've had a mint on card one. I primarily have a mint on card collection of these. A lot of these, especially the later set, very, very hard to get. Finally found this Bas Rutten at a very good price, could not pass it up, said, you know what, why don't I have this loose in my collection? I need it loose in my collection, and today the day has come. But I talked about my love for Bas Rutten, and it goes back to the mid-90s. I've talked before on the channel, for longtime viewers out there, I used to trade tapes back and forth with a guy in Japan. I'd give him some stuff from America, he'd give me all the stuff from Japan, all the crazy stuff, all the all-Japan stuff that I absolutely loved. He'd also give me some of the, deathmatch stuff, the Foley and the Funk stuff, IWA, things like that. But he also sent me a lot of Pancrase, and Pancrase really around the time of the UFC and predated the UFC and a lot of stuff. And Pancrase, think of it as professional wrestling with real rules. It was real, but it, rope breaks, things like that. And Pancrase was a game changer for young Kyle back in the day, and I absolutely loved it. And one guy I fell in love with was Bas Rutten, the Dutch kickboxing legend, a guy that has really changed the face of MMA throughout his career. And I always say, if Bas Rutten would have came on 10, 15 years later, he would be the biggest personality in the world, as he is the most charismatic guy I have ever seen on TV, in training videos, you name it. Just absolutely love El Guapo. You owe it to yourself if you don't know anything about him. Go check out highlight videos on YouTube. Check out some of his other stuff. He's been in movies. He's been all over the place. And let's run it down. He was the 3-time king of Pancrase. He went over to the UFC, became UFC heavyweight champion. He said, you know what? There is no more competition. I'm going to retire, I'm going to go be an actor and things like that. And this was a different time in the UFC where things were a little bit on a downturn, we'll admit that here. But he retired with 22 straight victories. He did retire, came back for one more, got one more under his belt, and then officially retired for good. But like I said, King of Pancrase, UFC champion. He also went on to star in movies. He starred in a movie called The Eliminator. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, but it was very funny. A couple years later, Stone Cold Steve Austin starred in a movie called The Condemned. Very similar movie, both bald-headed actors. I don't know, right there. Of course, you probably know him from The King of Queens and a lot of Kevin James movies. He's been in a ton of those throughout the years. He also wrestled for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I wonder what if Bas Rutten would have became a professional wrestler and really stuck with that instead of UFC, Pancrase, things like that. With his charisma, his stuff, his work ethic, I just can't imagine. But he had a decently enough successful over in New Japan Pro Wrestling, worked with Inoki and things like that. So big time, could have been really big in wrestling, of course. Minoru Suzuki, everybody loves Suzuki. We're going to unbox Suzuki on the channel sooner or later, or maybe before this, who knows, depending what order you watch these in. But Suzuki has a Storm Collectibles figure coming out, FYI. But he beat Suzuki 2 times in Pancrase, won the King of Pancrase from him, so he owns 2 on Suzuki from back in the day. When I was I guess I wasn't a teen, I was out of college, and some of you guys may know I was into MMA training. I trained MMA multiple times times a day for a long time. Of course, you guys all know about Iowa and the militich systems, things like that, so I was involved in a little bit of that kind of stuff. But not to toot my own horn or anything like that, but I woke up every single morning and I did Bas Rutten's MMA workout for many years, so I absolutely loved that. He has his Lethal Street Fighting DVD that went viral many years ago. If you've never checked that out, I strongly recommend that.
Been around. I've been a bouncer for many, many years. Bang, bang, bang. It's a street fight. Never look away from your opponent. Look, sir, I really don't want anything of this. And I go whoop, like this, and I slit your throat, and it's over and out.
Check out the DVD, and I don't even know, it's probably not even in print anymore. Bas Rutten's Wild Bachelor Party in Vegas. Oh man, just some great stuff for 20-year-old Kyle to digest back in the day. And at the end of the day, Bas Rutten goes right there with the Ultimate Warrior for me as one of my favorites. And I don't get to shout his praises very often because there's no UFC videos. There's none of that kind of stuff here on the channel. It's all, you know, wrestling and other things like that. So when I get a chance to really puff up old Bas Rutten, man, I'm going to take that chance right here today. And I absolutely do love Bas Rutten. And like I said, I think he's just the greatest thing ever. This is the most biased review of all time. So now that I got 5 minutes of jibber jabber about Bas Rutten out of the way, how about we get down to the figure? And let's do it like we do all the other figure reviews on the channel. We're going to take a look at the packaging. We're going to talk about it. We're going to unbox it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to see where it goes from there. So without further ado, let's take a look at old Bas Rutten. Absolutely love the UFC line. Now, I was collecting the UFC line, but I was only buying the Legends. And if you go back to the infancy of this channel here, I did a video where we walked through almost the entire Legend set. It might even have been the entire set if I remember right. Check out that video. We talk a little Bas Rutten on that as well. But very cool packaging here. Didn't really go over so well, as we do know. Unfortunate, but it is the more Jakks Deluxe Aggression style, and they want to have a little bit more articulation because, as we do know, the UFC line, of course. They also did a Pride line, I guess, but more articulation, submission holds, things like that. Kind of like what we saw with Jazzwares figures, which were better than expected. First series a little rough, but they did clean up a little bit, but didn't really go anywhere. But this Bas Rutten, absolutely fabulous. Love the packaging, love the octagon shape. Just a lot to like about this. And it seemed to me, at least in my area, Kmart was probably your best place to buy these UFC figures. They seem to have the best selection over the years they had these. But very cool packaging. Got UFC Legends at the top because he is the legend. And they did do like one legend per wave, things like that. Very wrestling-esque, I guess. You got Bas Rutten right here on the side. Beautiful glamour shot. Right there on the side, same thing. On the back, we got the cross-sell, we got the tail of the tape, we got the glamour shot right there, looking good for old Bas Rutten. Let's see what it says on the back of the package here. It says El Guapo, and of course the handsome one in Spanish. I even have that across my yellow Jeep. If you guys have seen that, it says El Guapo on the Jeep. That's what I do call it. Fighting out of Los Angeles, California, born in Tilburg, Netherlands. Height 6'1", weight 205 pounds. They do promote some of the rest of Series 6 here. Of course, Randy Couture, another big deal here. Would have loved to seen Bas and Randy square up in the UFC. That never did happen. Frank Mir, another favorite of mine. Tito Ortiz, probably my least favorite of all time is Tito Ortiz. George St. Pierre, I was always kind of mixed on George St. Pierre. Clay Guida, always a good fighter, always good to see him. Thiago Alves, not that big a fan of him back in the day. Jens Pulver, of course, fighting out of Bettendorf, Iowa, and I did grapple with him a few times over the years, actually. I was a lot bigger than Jens Pulver, especially during that time when I was into this kind of stuff. But very, very cool to get all these guys. And like I said, this was my glory day of the UFC. Unfortunately, the UFC has really passed me by. Too many shows, too much turn and burn. It's harder to get related to the characters. I think they lost a lot of stuff, but obviously they've grown the fan base. But a lot of the hardcores like me from way back in the day have kind of drifted off to the side. It's just not the same sport as it used to be. I think that's fair enough. Without further ado, let's get old Bas Rutten out of the package here. Like I said, this is a biased review. I don't know if you can count this, but something tells me there's no other Bas Rutten review on YouTube. Has anybody else ever reviewed this figure? Let's see if I can pull him out of the bottom here. Look at that. That's how you do it. You just pull it right out of the bottom. Slide it right out. You got the cage in the background. Looking good. See you later off to the side. We got the man. We got the myth. We got the legend, Bas Rutten. Absolutely love it. Looking cool here. Let's pull old Bas out of the package. See you later up high over the top. And now we got El Guapo himself, Bas Rutten. And man, this head sculpt, absolutely beautiful. It is a little bit big like we see with a lot of deluxe aggressions, but it's spot on. Somebody hands me this head sculpt, I know right away this is Bas Rutten. Obviously, I'm a Bas Rutten fan, so I'm going to know that. Maybe not the average Joe, but it looks just like Bas Rutten to me. The body a little bit smaller, and gosh, now I almost want to get another one of these and somehow put him and put an elite Bas Rutten together. Oh boy, I need a customizer's help out there, but Bas Rutten just looking really, really good. But the body is a little bit small to the head, I will say that one right here. Articulation wise, let's walk this through. We do get the butterfly shoulders on this one. Now that is something we didn't get with the Jakks Deluxe Aggressions that we got right here, so a lot of people do like that. Arms go all the way around, of course. You do get a bicep cut. You do get single jointed elbows. Double jointed elbows really weren't a thing back in this time frame. Hands back and forth, side to side, of course. Head back and forth, side to side, up and down. You do get an ab crunch, very, very tight. So tight I can't even move it. Might have to heat that guy up, but you do have an ab crunch, and it normally does work. You do get waist articulation. He can do those big old El Guapo splits right there. And then you do get the thigh cut at the top. You do get double jointed knees, which was really good. We didn't get that with Jakks either in the deluxe. Then you get the ankles back and forth, up and down. And of course, bare feet here because UFC at this time frame when Bas was fighting, no shoes allowed, of course. He does have 2 fists of fury, which is great for Bas, but Bas was a master of the palm strikes to the head. But also Bas had one of the greatest finishers, if you can call a finisher in MMA. But it was the liver kick or the liver punch. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever been punched or kicked in the liver. It absolutely sucks because when you get knocked out or you get passed out, you get choked out. Believe me, I've been there before in the gym. It's not fun, but it's even worse if you get kicked in the liver. And that's happened to me on 2 occasions in my life. And it just, like I said, absolutely sucks because you don't get out, but you go basically paralyzed. You sit there and it's like this weird sharp pain that goes throughout your body. You cannot move. It absolutely sucks. And of course, when I saw Bas Rutten doing it, I said, oh, there's what Kyle's going to do. I'm going to start using this, and that's what I would use as my finisher if there was a real thing in MMA training as a finisher. But it was always fun to do, and it sucks, but it's fun between friends. What's a liver punch between friends? But check out Bas Rutten. Once again, I can't recommend. Check out his highlights. Check out his stuff. You've probably seen it, I'm sure. I'm sure you have. But very, very cool. You get down to the shorts here. He's got the Hunter shorts. Now, if I remember right, wasn't that a company, like an MMA apparel company at the time back in the day? I think that's what that was. He does got the nice tattoo work on here. So they really did go all out for this Bas Rutten. You got the tattoos on his forearms there, both sides of his forearms. Unfortunately, his hands aren't open, but he does have those palm tattoos, which are really cool. You know, he'd be hitting people with the palms. You got the tattoos on the palms. Oh, man, how about that? And then, of course, you got his shin tattoo and then his leg tattoos over here. A little bit light on the tattoo for old El Guapo. But man, oh man, is this good. You get the painted on chest hair as well. All the articulation, just absolutely fabulous. I do wish the body was a hair bigger to match the head, or the head is a hair smaller to match the body. Either or would work for me. But man, I love this figure. And like I said, I am so biased, but he is going to go here in my elite somewhere. Maybe I'll stick him with my boy, the Ultimate Warrior. Really the most influential combat sport athletes, if you can call professional wrestling combat sports. Play with me. We're going to do it. These two define a mentality. That's exactly what they do. When you go to the gym, when you go through life, these two have paved the way for me in my life. I'm saying that in all seriousness. Absolutely love both of these guys right here. Give me more Bas Rutten figures, Storm Collectibles, Super 7. Somebody, do me a solid. Get me some Bas Rutten figures. We need more. We need them in this day and age, in 2022, 2023, whatever year it is. Give us some more Bas Rutten figures. And I don't think it's going to happen, and that is super unfortunate. But man, I would love it. I would love more representation of Bas Rutten. Give me a street gear Bas Rutten. Give me a suited Bas Rutten. Like I said, biased review. Biased review. You can't judge this. You can't judge this. I'm calling it. It's a biased review. I also grabbed Don the Predator Fry, another all-time favorite of mine. Talk about a manly man. And whenever I see Don Fry, I always think of my dad, because my dad looked like him a lot back in the 80s when I was a kid. I don't know, it goes back and forth. But Don the Predator Fry, another great one here. And a lot of good ones. The Gracie figure is amazing. I always love the Evan Tanner figure. There's a good throwback Chuck Liddell in this line. So many good figures. Go back, check out the UFC Legends video we did here on the channel. It's probably a little different than this one. It was 2 years ago. It was me cutting my teeth trying to figure out how to do this. And some may say I'm still trying to figure out how to do this. But Bas Rutten Legends Series 6, a must-have in everybody's collection. Like I said, I'm biased. I'm going to keep saying it. But I absolutely love this figure. And if I ever see this figure at a toy store, loose, things like that, I will pick it up. I will pick it up. That is my go-to because I would need another one. I'm going to start doing some custom Bas Ruttens because nobody else is going to do it. I will do it. So there you go. That's the Bas Rutten biased review. What are your thoughts on this figure? But what are your thoughts on Bas Rutten? And you better keep it positive. I know some of you guys will try to troll me, say this and that, but you'll never change my thoughts on Bas Rutten, that's for sure. But let me know your thoughts on this or the Legends line in general. And at the end, if you were a Legends collector or a UFC collector, what line did you like better? This one or the Jazzwares? Or something to be said about those Jazzwares. Didn't get deep enough, didn't get Legends. That was unfortunate, but I think they had some good stuff going on there, but there was many reasons why I knew that line was going to fail from the get-go, much like this line. But I'd love to hear your comments in the comments down below. Of course, you made it this far, you might as well like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the old notification bell. As you guys know, we got videos every single day and then some, and we got even more content over on the Patreon channel. Patreon has early access to videos, giveaways, Q&As, pizza reviews, you name it, it's all over there. And best of all, you do support the channel. You can also support the channel at ProWrestlingTees.com, search Kyle Peterson, and don't forget about social media. Hit me up at SirPaul64 over there on Twitter, Instagram, _Kyle_Peterson. So for the greatest of all time, El Guapo, Bas Rutten, I am Kyle. See you guys all real soon.